Hello, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge, and I want to thank Becky for inviting me to make this video and collab with everyone. So I will be linked in a playlist down below, or I will include the other people who are also doing this video. But the topic for this is, of course, books that made me cry. So first off, I have a confession, and it's a confession that my normal followers and friends know. I cry extremely easily. So this is a bit of a difficult, challenge for me to pick books that make me cry without just basically giving you every 6-star book that I've read, because one of the reasons why I created a 6-star rating system for myself and my channel is because I cry really easily, but there's also a difference between like a 5-star book that is really, really good and I enjoyed it, and then a 6-star book that made me cry, because I don't want to give books that are really, really good a lesser rating just because they like didn't make me cry. I don't know. So basically my 6-star like is 4 books that made me cry. Like that's kind of a thing. But also, again, I cry really easily, and I also cry when I'm very angry. Like if a book is making me so mad, like I'm like, this book is making horrible decisions, this character is so dumb, that also will make me cry. So there are also different kinds of tears. There's mad tears and sad tears, but we're going to go with like I cried because of the emotions of the story and what it was doing. We're going to go with that. And I'm going to try not to get like too crazy about this, but I'll kind of tell you like what elements about the book do it for me. But yeah, we'll just go through this stack that I have right here. And again, like most of these are books that were 6-star reads in the past few years. But if you're new to me, maybe you haven't known about them, or I haven't already mentioned them 50 million times in it. So we're just going to go through this stack here. And I mean, we're going to start with the woman who I know for a fact, if you're watching a few of these videos about books that made me cry, like she's showing up on them. But, I would be being disingenuous if I don't include her, because there's not a single book of hers I've read. Well, maybe The Kingmaker, All the King's Men. Maybe those ones didn't make me cry. But literally every other book I've read by Kennedy Ryan has made me cry. So I have my 2 absolute favorites, 2 6-star books from her that just made me ugly cry. And we'll go through them. So some of the first Kennedy Ryan I ever read was the Grip Trilogy by Kennedy Ryan. This is about a couple, Grip and Bristol. Grip is a rapper and Bristol is a manager. She has been for her brother, and she's also is like Grip is friends with her brother. They're both musicians in like different ways. And Grip has had a thing for her for a while. They had kind of like a missed opportunity at something. Actually, there's a little novella that kind of kicks off their first interactions with each other before Grip had gotten super big in the industry and before Bristol like even really had a career at all. She's also from a pretty wealthy family, but very controlling and like unhealthy dynamics in it. And these two, it's kind of like a Time's Up scenario in a way, where like Grip is about ready to like give up on this, and Bristol actually even pushes him to be in a relationship with another musician because it'll be good for his career. But these two, like, they're just meant to be. And through this trilogy, we see them committing to each other, dealing with being in the public eye, dealing with having an interracial relationship that's very public, dealing with them through heartaches, through dangers, and through the loss of their first child in a very traumatic way. And through it all, their consistency and dedication to each other when either one of them is struggling is beautiful. And it is well balanced and well paced in that way that Kennedy Ryan does so well. And like, I know this trilogy scares a lot of people because of the reverence in which that it's spoken about, but there's also a lot of fun in it. Like, I would like to put those forward too. Like, there's so much beauty in this story. Like, it isn't just the parts that make us cry. And I feel like that's what holds so many people back from reading. It's what held me back from reading it, okay? All I saw was my people who love it being like, this is so painful. Like, that's what I saw everyone doing about it. But the reason why it gets recommended is because of the power of their love and their dedication to each other and the way that they work things out and never give up. And like, there's a reason. There's a reason it's amazing. Listen to the audiobooks. They're amazing. They're singing on there and they're beautiful. It's beautiful. And then her most like recent big release, this one was with Forever. This is amazing. This one is Before I Let Go, and this one is a second chance romance for a divorced couple. They have 2 kids. It just didn't work out. They also had the loss of a child, loss of a late-term pregnancy, we'll say that, and their grief stole them from each other. Depression stole them from each other. And we're a few years down the road, but like, their feelings haven't went away. And they're at this point of, do I let go of this completely and try to move on? Or do I tell you the feelings I'm still having and the doubt I have that we made the right decision? Do I forgive myself for the loss that we've had? Do I forgive you? And it's so real. It's so real, but also inspirational at the same time. And I was just stunned, speechless, and a puddle of goo when I read this book. Literally, I'm stunned by it. And I'm just so happy that she wrote this type of story, because I've shared many times too, this one's very personal to my life in a way, not thankfully the loss of a child or like a baby sister or something like that. But my parents got divorced and remarried not too many years after, and their marriage has been healthier and better than it ever was then. And so there was just a lot of that dynamic between that, like, still trying to be a respectful parent. You know, you're never saying bad about them, but like seeing that person maybe go on dates, maybe kiss someone else, like what that can be like for the kids. Even though I was 19 when my parents got divorced, and I was just turning 21 when they got remarried. So it's not like I was in the same place that their children were, but it's still like hearing one of your parents maybe dating someone else. Like, it's so, there's so much baggage that comes with it. And I think that Kennedy really like walks it really well, because she's amazing. Okay, we'll move on from her after the first 8 minutes talking about her books. But again, I'm sure she'll show up on a lot of people's lists. But I just want to encourage you. I really want to encourage you that if you're like scared by us saying that she makes you cry, I also want to say that, like, I cry from joy just as much as I cry from the pain. And the pain that she puts you through just amplifies the happily ever afters. And also, again, the kind of happily ever after she writes, they feel attainable to us. They don't feel like you can never have that. It's more of like expressing love that we already like, that most of us like feel for someone. Like, love is a beautiful emotion. Everyone can feel love, unless you're a psychopath. Like, we know, but everyone can feel love. And I feel like she expresses what love feels like so well. So, all right, we're now going to switch because we have some fantasies to talk about. So that's why, like, we started with the realism. We started with the real, true stuff there. And now we're going to go to some fantasies. Okay? Okay. So, this one. All right? I love sharing this one. This one made me cry, though, because it did wreck me. This one is dark. This is painful. This shows the depths of human depravity and also the best that humans can possibly be. And it's also not going to be for everyone. But I haven't had any friends who've read it who've been bored or who've been like, I don't get it, why people like it. So we'll just say that. But that's going to be Manacled by Sin-Lin Yu. This, yes, is a Dramini fanfic. It's like crossed with Handmaid's Tale and very, very dark Harry Potter AU. So this one has Draco Malfoy and Hermione Granger, and they are put in some intense situations. When we start this book is split into 3 sections, and when we start this book, Hermione has been kept under Hogwarts in this type of prison, and she's being brought out of it to discover that a lot has changed. Most of her friends are dead. The Order is dissipated, but there may still be some people in the Order who are left, and Voldemort, who is now the ruler of everything, wants to find those last living Order members, and he believes that Hermione will know. But something has happened. She doesn't have her memories. She doesn't remember any of that. And so female witches who are not on Voldemort's side are being used as wombs because Wizarding World is having problems reproducing, and so they are using witches. They manacle them so that they can't use their powers, and they are given to witch and wizard couples who had served Voldemort well, and Draco and his wife are given Hermione. And not only is Draco supposed to monthly try to get her pregnant, because apparently having a magical connection with the baby and her will help him get her memories. It's explained in the book. Don't worry about it. He wants to keep an eye on her, and so she's given to him. And lots of stuff comes out. So this is amazing. My copy was bound for me by my friend Not So Average Joe. It's a one of a kind just for me, but you can get this for free to download it on AO3. I will put the link down below. Many people have read it that way. And then good luck trying to find a bound copy somewhere because it's difficult to get. But this book, I put it down, but I'll continue talking about it. The emotions that I went through in this story with these people, which I have to speak vaguely about it because I don't want to spoil Manacled for anyone. It is a crazy ride, but of course things are not as they seem. I said this was split into 3 parts. We start in present time with what's happening to Hermione, and then at some point in the story we get flashbacks, and we discover that Hermione knew Draco before, and not the at school part. She knew Draco before she was put in this position, but she doesn't remember it. How did he know her? Why is he acting like he doesn't know her now that she's been put in his custody like this? And is Harry Potter really dead? Is everyone dead? What is our chances for the world to ever be good again? And I think that this fanfic author did an amazing job. The story is so compelling, and if you've never read Harry Potter, you can read this. Like, I mean, you absolutely could. If you've read Harry Potter and you're like, I don't know if I want to read a story twist, like, yes, you do. Like, you do want to read it. I don't know another way to tell you. But the reason why this makes me cry is that the characteristics that this Hermione and Draco are imbued with, the selflessness of Hermione to the point of recklessness is intense. Like, it really, really is. It's something to behold. And Draco has so many complexities and also feels so deeply, but is never allowed to show those feelings because of the state that they're in and the danger if you slip up even once is so high. Like, it's terrifying. And so when we have just like the littlest wins, they would give you hope and then crush it and just break you. And so this book took me to some dark places, but by the end of it, you just wanted to keep going forever. Even though I also was like, is it ever going to be over? I was also like, I don't ever want it to be over. I just want to be with these people forever. And I think it was so well done. But it was a unparalleled reading experience. I've never had a reading experience like reading Manacled. And I just highly recommend it for everyone. Like, do yourself a favor and try it. I promise you, I was so skeptical. But my friend Jo was like, Jen, you have to read this book. And she was right. So this is me saying it to you. Read Manacled, because it will wreck you in many ways. I lied. We're going to do a historical real quick. So I also like to always share, again, The Magic. This is one of my favorite historicals ever. Lisa Kleypas, so many of her books make me cry because I think she just puts her emotions in there so good. This one is a second chance romance between Lady Aline Marsden, who is Marcus's sister. If you've read the Wallflower series, this is like a prequel or a 0.5 book in it. It takes place a few years beforehand. And between John McKenna, who was a servant on her father's estate. They fall in love when they're young. But then when her father finds out, he banishes McKenna. She also suffers an injury, not any way related to that, but because of that. And now it's been 12 years. I think it's been 12 years. It's been 10 or 12 years, and now he's back. She's still unmarried. He's there for revenge. She's never got over him. He's never got over her. And so she agrees to let him get revenge on her, which really means he wants to fuck her and leave her. But of course that's not going to happen because he loves her. So that's not going to happen. But she still doesn't feel like she deserves him or that she could be a good wife to him. And so there's a lot of back and forth between that. And it is so painful. And every time I read this, I am so mad at Aline that she won't just accept the love of this passionate, wonderful man. She just won't accept it, which makes him feel like he's dirt beneath her boot because he thinks the reason that she doesn't want him is because he's not a lord, which is just shit. She doesn't care. But she lets him think that so that he'll go and he'll have a better life than with her. But thankfully, other people don't let them make that mistake. And there's also a side romance in here about Olivia, her sister, and then John McKenna's working partner. And I know some people either don't love that love story because they're like, it gets in the way of these two, or they wish that it was longer. But for me, it's the perfect amount, and it deals with alcoholism and like getting sober in a time when like people just didn't do that. And I really appreciated that also for personal reasons. So I really love that. So this is one of the books that always makes me cry. Okay, we need to keep it moving because I didn't want this video to be forever long. But another one I always love to share is Entreat Me by Grace Draven. This one is a fantasy, like Beauty and the Beast retelling. This is, oh, I love this so much. So this one has a cursed lord. Both his son and him are cursed, and so is their castle. And the lord is slowly turning into this like forest monster. And we have a beautiful young heroine whose name is what's the little sister's name? Dang it, Cinna. And she is getting wooed by the prince Gavin. Well, it turns out that Gavin is trying to whisk her away to get her to fall in love so they can break this curse. But Levain, who is her older, sharper, widowed sister, sassy, people in the village are afraid of her because she's like the scary widow. But I mean, she's not. It's not like she's that old or anything, but she is widowed. She had a wonderful husband, but he was the undertaker, so he had a tough job. He had a hard job. And Levain chases after her sister when her sister goes to this magical place, and she gets there and she's like, if you want to marry my sister, that's great, but you're not just sweeping her away. You could let her go at any time, and then my sister's ruined and you've taken her virtue. So I'm going to be here. I'm going to be a chaperone. We'll stay for the winter since it's not safe to go home, but you guys need to decide if you want to get married or not. And if you don't, I'll have made sure that my sister is still a virgin by the time this is over. What she isn't counting on is Gavin's father, Ballard, who is the one who is the most cursed. He's taken on a lot of the burden of the curse, and he's basically just, you know, he's trying to hold out hope until his son is able to fall in love and maybe break the curse, but he's kind of lost hope for himself. And then he sees Levain, who he just thinks that she is fire and that she's beautiful and sensual, and he wants her for himself. And she is very sassy with him at first. Like, she's just like, no, you can't have me. Like, no. But then she likes him too. And she's like, I mean, as long as we both know that I'm going to go home in the spring, I will need to go back to my father. I can't leave him alone. We can find pleasure with each other. But very quickly they fall hard. And they have this absolutely beautiful love. And every word they say to each other just squeezed my heart just a little bit. And all the way until the last page of this book, which has one of my favorite lines that I read in 2022. And so I'm going to read it. You must live for another 4 centuries, Ballard, as must I. Any less, and I'll feel cheated of loving the finest man I've ever known. Ballard dragged her into his arms and buried his face in her hair. My beauty, he whispered to her, if we lived 1,000 years, I'll still feel cheated. Just promise me you won't curse me once you expire. She swatted him on the arm. Of course not. My ghost will just nag you into eternity. So, like, they have this beautiful love and they still can, like, joke back and forth. And it's so beautiful. And they're so caring for each other. And when they break the curse and can actually be together, these two, like, beautiful people, like, this book just fills me with so much joy. Because the things that Ballard and his people were put through are just horrible. And to find someone like Lou, who is not perfect by any means, but is so, like, direct and steadfast and straightforward, is just such a gift. Like, she's so wonderful. I love it. And so this book made me tear up so many times, seeing the stuff that Ballard and his people had been through, like when you find out his history and, like, how they got cursed and all of that. It's heartbreaking to see, but the hope that Lou and Cinna bring in is fantastic. Like, it just lights me up. It's beautiful. So absolutely. Then we have A Heart of Blood and Ashes by Milla Vane. This is one of my favorite fantasy romances ever written. It's fantastic. I'm hoping we get the 3rd book in this series this year, but I'm not holding my breath, guys. I'm not holding my breath because it's been moved 4 times. So there we go. But this one, you can read this as a standalone. Each book has a different couple, but, like, there is an overarching thing, and I would like us to get to it eventually. Would be nice, you know? I would like that. But anyway, so this is about Maddock and Yvain. And Maddock, at the beginning of this book, he is a barbarian, like, warlord. His parents are the king and queen, and they've been killed, and so he returns home from raiding to discover that his parents are dead, and he finds out that they have been lured away to this enemy kingdom by a princess there and then murdered. And so that's what he hears. So he goes after them to try to stop them, and he's told, you won't be able to kill the king who killed them, but you could go after his daughter, who happens to be in a caravan being sent to be married off somewhere. So then we enter Yvain, who has actually set a lot of this up. She's made it so she can be kidnapped because she's actually been tortured and abused by her father her whole life. She's missing 2 fingers because he had them removed so she could no longer draw a bow with them. He had her legs broken so she couldn't easily walk down the stairs to escape him. He's kept her underfed and sickly so she has no strength because he fears her powers and what she would be able to do as the queen of their people. Because normally this nation is run by matriarchs, but her mother was also abused and mistreated. And so Yvain had actually reached out to Maddock's parents to help her. And they had come to help her, but they were betrayed by her father and murdered, and the blame was put on her. So Maddock believes she's the reason his parents are dead. He won't listen to anything she said, and he's planning to kill her and scatter her body to the wind, to the ashes. He doesn't care. But Yvain knew that he'd be angry, and she comes at him and she's like, that would be foolish. That will do nothing. My father doesn't love me. He would thank you for killing me. That's what he would do. You should marry me because my children will be the leaders of this country. If I'm married, we'll be the leaders of both of our kingdoms, and we can oust my father. But the trouble is, Maddock doesn't trust her. He doesn't want to believe anything she says. He thinks she's a liar. There's no way my family trusted you. And so Yvain has an uphill climb, which begins with her giving him a bloody hand job. Well, she has the blood of her brother on her hands as lube. So that's kind of the like showstopper, the barn burner that begins this series that so many people go crazy for. And yes, it is a very like dramatic moment, but it's dramatic because of the promises that Yvonne is making to him while she is giving him release and saying that like, we will tear down your enemies and you will be a mighty king because of this. But Yvonne has nothing but her wits and her charm in some aspects to try to speak with Maddox and his people and get them to, you know, like understand what is at stake and like what she's been up against. And there's just so many times where my heart was breaking and I was banging my head against the wall because Maddox is so sure that he's right. And the thing is, he is a good man in a lot of aspects. He's a fair leader. He's a good leader, but he's so hurt by rage and by an oath that he makes that he won't look away from it. And it gets them into some very like uncomfortable situations throughout. And just when Yvonne is ready to trust, he'll do something that fucks it all up. And it's so hard to see. But it makes it, when we get to the end, when we're getting to some of the final work, when he takes responsibility for everything he said and done, and when he lays out a new oath to her about the type of man and husband and king and father he'll be to her, it is so satisfying, and you just feel so content that like he finally gets it. He's finally broke through all of his prejudices and the things that were holding him back, and it's really, really beautiful to see. And then the last one I want to mention is one that I'm sad didn't get as much attention as I wanted it to. But it will have its day. Like, I really believe that this book will, like, come back around when it needs to. I think in the winter times it's going to do really well. And I think that, like, this book was so well done in my opinion that like it's going to have its due. There's going to be special editions of this book that people die for, and it's going to be amazing. But that is Anastasia by Sophie Lark. Whew, this book wrecked me many times over. It was a work of art in my opinion. I think it was well thought out. Sophie told such a powerful story with this. And it isn't about being an Anastasia retelling. Anastasia isn't a fairy tale, okay? It was she was a very tragic young girl. She was born into the family she was born into. There are things she can't change about her life, and her life ended in a horribly tragic way. But the way that Sophie reimagines this is, what if magic was real? What if the cause of a lot of this drama was magic and like unhappy people dealing with that scenario? And what happened if she had lived and was able to grow and become the queen that she could have been? Not that she ever would have been queen. Like, we know she was the 5th daughter in line. Like, all those things are true. We get it. But I think the way that Sophie took parts of reality, but also this is a completely fictitious world, and it takes elements of like the Fox movie that you love, but also mixed with history and also mixed with her own world, and told this fantastic story. Like, it's so epic. I love it so much. But there are definitely heartbreaking things, because some historical beats that we do know, like we do see happen, and they're tragic and dark, and it was a scary time. And even being a princess didn't help. And you still have to deal with grief and loss and fear and pain, whether you're a princess or a pauper, you know? So this book absolutely wrecks me. I can tell how much Sophie's writing has grown and just changed and matured so much in the few years that I've been reading her books. And I love it so much. I love it so much. So this book made me cry buckets, like ugly cried for this book too. So there you go. Those are some books that made me cry. Let me know some of yours. Of course, again, I cry all the time. This is not by any means an extensive list. I cry for the happy things, the mad things, the sad things, but these are some that made me cry for big feels, usually for feelings of like hope and happiness and things like that. So thank you so much for watching. Again, make sure you check out my friends' videos who I'll have linked down below, and I'll see you next time. Bye.